Welcome everyone to a new TV edition of Screams After Midnight. This is a horror movie show. Well, it's usually a horror movie show. Over on the Melfuzz Movies channel we talk about horror movies, but here on Melfuzz TV we are starting a new thing. We are going to be working our way through every single episode of Tales From the Crypt, a show which I have never seen a single episode of, well, up until watching the first one for this video, obviously. Anyway, I'm Peter, and this is Tim across from me.
Hello, it's a pleasure as always, Peter.
Yeah, so I'll make sure there's a link across to the movie channel in our playlist of all of our movie reviews. And this week we did talk about the 1972 Tales from the Crypt movie as a sort of lead-in to this. But so we're going to talk about every single episode once per week for the next couple of years, and then who knows what we'll do after that if we're alive at that point, because who knows. Starting off at the start, season 1, episode 1. It's called The Man Who Was Death, and it originally aired in June 1989, which, little bit of trivia, is a month after I was born. So
I don't know if that constitutes as trivia.
it's trivia.
I feel like trivia
enough.
is like, yeah, but I feel like trivia, I feel like someone would have to care about it for it to be trivia.
Very well. So The Man Who Was Death. So we're going to be, and on this show we're just going to go spoilers for the episodes. We're not going to spoil anything later, but this episode, full spoilers. And this stars William Sadler, who of course is a fairly well-known actor. He right now he is the president in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You might know him from that. He's been in a bunch of stuff over the years. He was in Hard to Kill, which is a Steven Seagal movie. He was in Roswell. He was in other stuff. He's been in tons of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that's gonna be pretty noticeable as we watch these episodes, is that they are just chock full of not necessarily huge name actors, but
faces that we recognise.
Especially a lot of TV people. Again, by my memory, but
it's funny you bring that up because he wasn't the only face I recognised in this.
The detective?
Not the detective.
Oh, okay.
There was in all 2 faces that I at least recognised. Actually, no, there was 3. The barman I kind of recognised. I couldn't tell you what he was in, but I know him from something.
Yeah.
The husband and the couple that get acquitted of the crime, he has been in a couple of things. The one that I do remember, oddly enough, is Police Academy 6, City Under Siege. And finally, the first guy that gets acquitted of a crime and killed, the baker, is the baker from Terminator 2 that Arnold steals his clothes from.
Oh, wow. All right.
So there's a serum. I knew it was him.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I didn't recognize that many people. I did think the detective that busts in later on, I looked a little vaguely familiar, but kind of the same thing. I couldn't tell you exactly where from.
You know the face, you know you've seen them in something, but you can't quite place it. Yeah.
And I feel like there's, when I think of Tales from the Crypt, there's some key things that I think of, and I feel like this first episode definitely had some of that. So yeah, one of the first things I think of is those kind of chock full of character actors that you recognize. Gratuitous nudity is something that usually comes to mind.
That's actually a weird thing, because even though it makes sense because this was a HBO show, I don't really think of anthology shows as being like this, with nudity and swearing. So that's almost a weird, even though I should have expected it because it's HBO, but I wasn't. But before we dive into anything else, we should explain what the episode is, what the plot is. So William Sadler plays the executioner at a prison, or not at one prison. He's the executioner for the state, and he is the guy who flips the switch when someone is getting electrocuted in the electric chair. And he is laid off because the state outlaws capital punishment. The death sentence is no more, so he is fired is not quite the word, but laid off is the better term. He's made redundant, as it were, because his job just doesn't exist anymore. And he decides to take justice into his own hands and goes after people that he thinks have been wrongly found not guilty and fries them with various forms of electrocution. So that's the plot of the episode, and of course by the end the cops run like catch up to him, and he
Yeah.
himself is put in the electric chair.
Yeah,
Um,
they arrest him at a very convenient time when capital punishment just gets reinstated.
yeah, that was a
Which
bit convenient.
I'm kind of curious if that's ever actually happened.
Probably not. I think the whole point is it's just because they really wanted the ending to be that he
Yeah,
himself goes in the
yeah,
chair, which they did really well because the opening of the episode starts with them executing someone while he's still got his job, and it sets up
yeah.
this idea of the red phone that the governor might phone on to stop
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
execution. So at
yeah,
the end of the episode, when he's sitting there, he's like, he's going to call, and
yeah.
like they could pick up that phone at any time, or the phone could ring at any time, and it sets this like moment where he might get saved, and it can, but
Yeah.
it's set up at
It
the
was
start,
a
so
Yeah, and it was like a nice little like turnaround for his character who throughout the whole thing has been like had this kind of like very like cool, collected kind of
yeah.
attitude, and then at the end to see him freaking out like the people in the beginning like yelling for the governor and
What's
everything.
what's worth mentioning as well about his character that I really liked and it gives the episode a really weird but cool, like weird
Yeah.
vibe, is the
Hmm.
way he constantly talks to us, the audience. He's constantly
Yeah.
like just like standing in front of like the highway or in the street talking about his thoughts on the world, and it plays off really well. I think it's partly because William Sadler is a good actor. He does play it
Yeah.
so cool and calm. When he's giving his advice about how he's never had any trouble with the ladies, and he's given his
Yeah.
rules, which all sound very kind of grotesque and old fashioned, to be honest. But
Yeah, swarmy kind
yeah,
of guy.
yeah,
Yeah, I feel like that easily could have been something that could turn people off like that, like breaking the fourth wall and stuff. But in this episode, I feel like it worked just yeah, I guess just because of his I guess acting and the way he kind of presents it, and I don't know, it gave it like a nice little unique like you know a little extra thing about the episode that it would have been kind of very straightforward without it, the way it played out.
yeah. It does that. He also like the police come and get him, but you never see anything from their perspective. We stay with him
Yeah.
the entire
Mhm.
time, and it's on the third like person. Well, it's not. I mean, the second murder was two people, so technically it's the fourth person. But the third murder is when they
Yeah.
stop him. I liked the first two. Though. I liked that the biker just like gets electrocuted in the fence, and
Yeah.
then the couple. I like how like the girlfriend, because they killed his wife, so like he'd
Mhm.
get all the stuff rather than divorcing and splitting it in half and all whatever.
Yeah.
And she's like,
Yeah.
I didn't know he was going to go through with it, and like, they basically break down and.
Yeah.
He's like,
The
oh, I find you guilty of murder of your wife. I hereby sentence you to death, carried out immediately, and then just
Now the
jacuzzi.
only question I had about this is how did he do this one? Like, did he drop something in, or it looked like he had some type of like remote that he pressed?
I would expect he already planted something
Okay.
earlier on, because it sounds like he's planned this. It doesn't sound.
Yeah.
It's the same with the guy, the
The
biker on the
biker.
fence. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot more obvious what he's done there, but he still had to come over and set up the cables and all that, and
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
so
Because yeah, I guess maybe I was just like, you see, he likes to electrocute people, and you have two people in water. So I guess my thought was like, oh, he must be dropping something in. Like that seems like the logical. But then when he did do that, I was kind of like, oh wait, like how did he do that then? But yeah, if he planted something, that makes sense.
yeah, because even the third one as well at the nightclub. He's got like
Yeah.
this dancer's cage rigged to electrocute her, so he must have been there like while it was shut and set things
Yeah.
up. And
Do you think like subconsciously he wanted to get caught? Because it's probably not like the most well thought out plan. Like I don't know. It seems
probably,
like he's given himself like a very like easy, clear MO, and like I don't know. I feel like if he's going into these places and rigging stuff, I feel like it'd be easier to draw a line to him as
well,
opposed to
now that you bring that up, halfway through the episode, he's walking through the street and he's talking about these two junkies, but he's talking about the
Yeah.
idea that we're all obsessed with death and we all want a little taste of death. That's what the junkies are doing whenever they use drugs and so on. And
Yeah.
going along with that metaphor, that actually kind of makes sense. That secretly he wants a taste of death. Maybe that's why he likes about it. Because at the start of the episode, he says that he always looks the convicts in the eyes when they're told
Yeah.
not to do that. And maybe that's him getting his little taste of death. So maybe secretly he Not so much that he doesn't want to live anymore, but he just wants to know
Right,
what it
right.
feels like.
Yeah, interesting. Uh,
Yeah. Anything else, Timmy? Anything we're missing before we?
I don't know. I think overall, it
Well,
was a
yeah, I suppose actually
okay.
that's how we should wrap up. Did you like the
Yeah.
episode? That's good.
I did like it. Um, yeah, it's like good, for like a half hour episode of something, which I guess I just mean like, I don't know
That's
if it
yeah.
play out.
That's almost irrelevant just because every week is going to be a half an hour episode.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I guess I'm just trying to say like, I don't know if I'd want to see like a whole movie of this or something, but yeah, like it's a nice little presentation of this type of story.
Hmm.
Um,
See, the fact
and
is I feel like I have seen movies like this, not specific to
yeah,
electrocution or even vigilantism, but just the
mhm,
idea of the killer constantly talking to you. Because when you even think about like Dexter. That's what that
yeah,
is in a lot of ways.
yeah,
Just a lot more stylized. Although I'd argue this has a lot of style. I actually think this has a lot of style. This episode,
yeah.
you feel like you're a part of this really dark world that he's in,
Mhm.
this really cynical world. But no,
It did a good job of like feeling very grimy. Like there's
yeah,
a
it's
kind of like
do you know what it feels like? I know this sounds stupid because it was on cable in the late 80s, but it has that
yeah,
late 80s, early 90s like cable late night feel to it.
yeah. Yeah, like I like the way I used to watch these when I was a kid, because we didn't have HBO at my house at first, and I believe at some point they started like rerunning them on Fox, like censored, like on maybe like Friday or Saturdays, like late at night. I could be wrong about that, but basically I would usually watch them on HBO, but we didn't have it, but my grandma did, so when I would see her, it would be like one of those things where like when she goes to bed, I'd like, like, oh, okay, like now, like let me, go to the TV and watch Tales from the Crypt, and it was like one of those things where it did have like a very like seedy, like, oh, I shouldn't be watching this, like, because it's horror and there's gore and stuff, but then yeah, there is also nudity and swearing and uh, obviously you watch it now, it's not like there's lots more offensive stuff out there,
Yeah,
whatever. But at the
but
time, is like so subversive.
honestly, Tim, there's probably more extreme stuff, other than the nudity and the swearing, but there's
Yeah.
probably more extreme horror stuff on network TV now than there
Oh
is in
yeah,
this.
yeah,
So
without a doubt. I'm sure like freaking Hannibal or something.
yeah,
you
so
know.
yeah, but no, that's the first episode of Tales from the Crypt. Hopefully, you liked us giving our thoughts on it and reacting to it.
Now,
But
one last thing though, I do want to say, I do want to touch on the Crypt Keeper real quick.
oh yes, of
Um,
course.
uh, yeah, I feel like the first introduction to him is a little weak because he like he's doing the puns and stuff, but I don't know, he feels like a lot quieter and a lot softer. I just feel like I remembered him as being very much more bombastic and
He may grow. I mean, I thought it was.
yeah,
This is the first time I've really seen him. Like I've seen the
yeah,
images of him before. Like I know what the Crypt Kill looks like,
yeah,
but this is the first time I've actually got to see one of his introductions and one of his conclusions.
yeah.
Puns
I
were
do.
fine. I'm sure
Yeah.
they'll get funnier.
I do like he does have a weird thing, if I remember correctly, where he does seem to derive some type of pleasure from, uh, like acts of violence against himself and like basically killing
Well,
himself
yeah,
and chopping stuff off.
that was in this because he was electrocuting himself at the end, of course, and he looked quite happy while he was frying. So
Yeah,
yeah. So that's the first episode of Tales from the Crypt. Hopefully you've enjoyed us going through this if you're an old fan of the show and this is just a trip down memory lane, or maybe you want to watch along with us for the first time. Either way, whatever, cool. Hope we'll see you along the ride. So yeah, we'll be back next week. Let us know what you think of this episode in the comments below. Like and subscribe and all that jazz. Get us on Twitter at mild_fuzz. Look out for other horror TV reviews coming from Almost Cancelled, our regular TV show on the channel. Ash vs Evil Dead, Scream Queens, we'll be at least trying The Exorcist, and we'll see how that is. Stan Against Evil looks fun. So that's all coming later on this fall on the channel. And of course, like I said at the start, we also do horror movie reviews. So if you liked us talking about this, head over to Mild Fuzz Movies, there'll be a link, and you can see what we think of the movies that we're doing. So In fact, coming up soon are Don't Breathe and The Blair Witch, or just Blair Witch, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, so I look forward to that. Thanks for watching, guys. We will see you next time.